Have you ever noticed that the idea of trying again feels almost dangerous? I mean, you want change. You can see the version of you who feels more like yourself, who shows up in the way you intend to in your life and work and your health and your relationships, who's not stuck in the same loop. Yet when it comes time to actually do the thing, something in you slams on the brakes, right? You sign up for the course, you buy the book, you plan the diet, you set the alarm, you tell yourself this time will be different. Then the moment arrives to follow through, and suddenly you're avoiding the assignment, forgetting the plan, scrolling your phone, doing anything except the thing you promised yourself you would do. If that sounds familiar, you're not lazy and you're not the problem. There's a reason it feels risky to try again, especially when you've been disappointed in the past. In this video, I want to talk about the parts of you that are trying to protect you from more disappointment and why those protective voices can shut down your best intentions long before you have a chance to see what's possible. Welcome to the You're Not the Problem podcast, where the conversations help you understand your nervous system, your adaptations that have been running your life so that you can stop turning on yourself and start standing with yourself. In this space, we tell the truth about unwanted behaviors like emotional eating, overworking, people-pleasing, procrastination, and self-sabotage. We talk about what it's like to live with ongoing stress and overwhelm, how that state shapes your choices, your relationships, your health, and how to step into a lighter, more grounded, deeply authentic way of living. My hope is that every time you listen, you'll feel less alone, more compassionate toward your own patterns, and more rooted in the truth that you're not the problem, you're the possibility. Now, it's likely that you've had the experience, like I have, hundreds of times, of wanting to change your experience or yourself in some way and taking the first steps toward doing so, right? You take a step forward, but then you shut down your efforts before they even get off the ground. Now, in the past, you may have told yourself it's due to weakness or laziness or that you're the problem. However, that shutdown or failure to follow through isn't laziness or proof that you're broken. It's protection from the heartache of having the thing you seek so intensely not happen. What do I mean by protection? Well, your body and nervous system have learned, often the hard way, that hope can be dangerous. That opening yourself to the possibility of change could lead to heartbreak. And heartbreak is one of the most painful experiences a human being can endure. Think back to the moments when you really believed change was possible. Maybe it was at the start of a diet, or you bought the groceries, cleared your shelves, planned your meals, and for a little while it worked. And then one night you found yourself standing in front of the freezer with a spoon in your hand. The ice cream was gone before you even realized what had happened. The next morning, the shame was horrific, and that misstep hurt more than if you had never started. Or maybe it was your sleep. You promised yourself this would be the week you went to bed earlier. You set your intentions, made your plan, but then somehow you looked at the clock and realized you'd been scrolling on your phone until 1 a.m. That moment in the middle of the night, it felt crushing. Maybe it was your relationship. You promised each other, no more fighting. We're gonna love better this time. And for a while, it worked until the argument started again and the hope came crashing down. Each of these moments burns itself into your system. Hope rises and then it crashes. And the nervous system says, never again. Don't open the door to change. It's not safe. Let me tell you about Rebecca. Rebecca is a 47-year-old accountant. She's got 2 teenage boys. She's got 3 divorces under her belt. She'd actually been on disability for years due to chronic health struggles. She really longed for financial security for herself and her family, for independence, for dignity, for the joy of building a life again. And an online training program caught her eye that would allow her to work from home and build her practice again. She felt a spark that she really hadn't felt in years. For the first time, she began to imagine a future. But every time she started to gain momentum with her coursework, she got sick. First it was a cold, then it was migraines, and exhaustion so heavy she couldn't even lift her head. To her, it looked like bad luck. She said, I feel like my body hates me. But in reality, her body loved her and was trying to protect her. Now, if we could have asked her body, it would have told her, Rebecca, don't go there. Don't risk the heartbreak of believing life could turn around. Stay small, stay safe. The pain of believing and then losing it all again, it would be too much. So her body made sure she never got too far. She could do just enough that it wasn't obvious what was happening, but never enough to risk full heartbreak. Julia had the same experience. She'd been trying to escape from her constant anxiety and her addictions, mostly food and alcohol. And she loved signing up for programs, coaching packages, online courses. She had a whole bookshelf full of self-help books. And with every purchase, she told herself, this is it. This is the one. It's going to change everything. And she'd show up strong at first. She'd buy herself a new notebook and a pen. She'd rock the first couple of modules, chapters, or sessions. And then life would always get in the way. She'd have a busy week and then a family emergency, or as she put it, the wind would just go out of my sails. And pretty soon she stopped showing up at all. Every time she told herself the same story, I'm too broken, I'm too lazy, I'm too undisciplined. Like most of us, she was convinced she was the problem. And she carried those words around with her like stones in her pocket. As we explored her adaptive pattern, though, she began to hear a voice she hadn't recognized before. And that voice whispered, Julia, I don't want you to really try and fail. That would hurt too much. I'm going to help you by making sure that you give up before you fully engage. That way, you can always say, well, I didn't give it my all, right? And then you don't have to face the devastation of giving everything and still failing. Her shutdown wasn't sabotage. It was love in disguise. And when I think about the deep pain of our dreams and aspirations being crushed, I think about the movie Castaway. In that movie, Chuck, played by Tom Hanks, he's stranded on a deserted island after a plane crash. And in his life before the crash, he was deeply in love and engaged to the lovely Kelly, played by Helen Hunt. Now, alone and bewildered at first, the only thing that kept him alive was Kelly, her picture, the belief that she was waiting, the hope of reunion. And that hope was truly his lifeline. It carried him through storms, through loneliness, through despair. So imagine his devastation when, after being rescued, he returned home to discover that Kelly, believing him to be dead, had gotten married and built a whole life without him. The moment when he realized the dream that had kept him alive was gone was nothing short of gut-wrenching. And for many of us, that's what it feels like to put our hope in a promise of healing, only to find ourselves unable to follow through. Every time you dared to believe, every time you thought this is it and it didn't work out, you felt like Chuck, discovering Kelly was gone. In those moments, your nervous system learned, we can't feel that again. Hope is dangerous. Better not to hope at all. Recognizing the pattern in ourselves, right? Maybe you see yourself in Rebecca or Julia. Maybe you know exactly how Chuck felt when he heard the news Kelly had moved on. What have you desired so deeply that your adaptations have kept from you? Now, as you work to adopt the protocols in that I recommend in my book, or stay committed to any other practices, really notice if this pattern is at play for you, right? Because like all other adaptations, this one wants to protect you, and it's clever. It doesn't always slam the brakes on in obvious ways. Sometimes it lets you dabble just enough to feel like you're trying, but not enough to risk real heartbreak, right? You'll sign up for the program, never finish the lessons, clean out the pantry, keep the emergency stash, commit to bed, going to bed by 10 p.m., but then scroll just a little longer, right? And each small act of sabotage seems harmless, but together they protect you from the crushing pain of really trying and failing. Your pattern says, if we never risk fully, we never risk losing fully. It's safety through smallness. The safety comes at a huge cost because you never get what your heart is calling for. So what can be done? Well, here are the concepts that I shared with Rebecca and Julia. The answer is not to push harder, not to bully yourself, not to scream, try harder, just do the thing, what's wrong with me, right? That only deepens the wound, and it further convinces the adaptive part that it's not safe. The way through is love. You must meet the protective part of you as the little one who carries the heartbreak of every past disappointment. You have to speak to that part with tenderness as your sacred self. It might start, oh, little one, I see you. I know how hard you've been working to protect me. I know how many times you've opened your heart, believed this was your moment, and then felt it all collapse. I know that hurts. You've been keeping me safe from that pain, and I honor you for that. You might continue, I want you to know this time is different. I'm not going to abandon you. I'm not going to chase quick fixes or punish you with impossible rules, right? We can use new tools this time, a way forward that doesn't require giving up because of a single misstep. The missteps can become data that we now use to refine and recommit, right? Your conversation, your work with this part, it's going to look slightly different, but if you build a relationship with it, you can help it feel safe enough to open to the process of change again. And when met with compassion in this way, Rebecca's part responded and said, hey, I need you to stop telling us that every time we don't stick to the plan perfectly that we failed. I need you to tell me that if something feels too hard, that we can break it down further until it feels doable. I need you to stop setting us up for failure. And this conversation led Rebecca to reach out to the head of the training program and ask to stretch it out over 6 months instead of the planned 3. She continued to converse with her part. And with that part's input, she navigated the program in a way that not only allowed her to finish, but the instructor of the program asked her to join his team. Now, Rebecca chose not to accept the offer, but she was so honored to be seen so highly. This was the first thing she had completed in decades, and it was a real turning point in her life. Understanding that it was her adaptations that were holding her back, that she wasn't the problem, opened her life again. She could sense that there was nothing her expansive self couldn't create. And all of this happened without force, without shaming, without numbing to cope. Now, Julia is still learning how to have these conversations, but she is on the right path. And knowing that she is adapted rather than broken, it's giving her the grace to stay in the game. We overcome the underlying resistance by tending to parts not through force, shame, or shutdown, by understanding the motivation of the parts and what they need. And when we provide that, they feel safe enough to engage with change, right? We meet those parts with kindness, compassion, and great care. They are doing their best. And with the strong and steady presence of the sacred self, they will feel safe enough to let change in little by little. This is how we rise. This way of working with yourself is at the heart of my freedom formula, which teaches you how to move out of survival mode, reconnect with your true self, and create a life that fits who you are. The first part of that formula is laid out step by step in my book, You're Not the Problem, End the Overwhelm, Restore Energy, and Make Progress That Lasts. And you can begin this work today by downloading the free introduction using the link in the video description that's below. If this spoke to you, let's stay connected. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future videos on the nervous system, somatic work, and the real reasons change has felt so hard. In addition, take a moment to share in the comments what landed for you, or what are you noticing in your own patterns. I'll see you next time.